Hi, this is Kelly Glick, and I am reviewing Module 8, which is Legal Aspects of Teacher Evaluation. For this module, we had to review 3 different articles, the first being Teacher Evaluation and Issue Overview in Education Week. And this article really looked at how teacher evaluation has changed over the last couple years and what's happening with that. So it mentioned the 2009 Race to the Top competition at the federal level, which led many districts to change teacher effectiveness ratings to include at least 3 different levels. And it also tied student achievement and different test scores to whether a teacher is effective or not. So the states are still allowed to kind of define what teacher effectiveness looks like and what the levels of proficiency are at in each state. Also, most states now require that districts conduct annual evaluations of teachers as opposed to every 2 to 3 years. So there are new evaluation formats that started as a result of different federal legislation. Both the value-added model and predetermined weighting formulas try and look at all the contexts that students arrive in the classroom with. So all the different things that can impact student achievement and can change test scores, motivation, those sorts of things, and then try to come up with complicated formulas that allow districts to still somehow measure teacher effectiveness with all the different students that are in a classroom. So the concerns with some of these models are basically about fairness. Is it fair to attach pay to evaluations? Is it fair to rely just on achievement tests given all the other factors that impact those? And are these evaluation models actually accurate and valid and reliable? So the next article looked at teacher evaluation heads to the courts, also in Education Week, and this reviewed a lot of different lawsuits at the state level and also at the federal level. And these lawsuits really center around the new teacher evaluation systems that have been enacted in different states recently. So often these suits are backed by the American Federation of Teachers or National Education Association. And some of the issues that were reviewed in this article involve lawsuits around merit pay versus collective bargaining rights. Teachers complained in some of the different lawsuits that they were evaluated on students they did not even teach because of how the evaluation system was set up in their state. Whether or not evaluations can be connected to pay was also challenged in court. And whether or not evaluations could either bypass tenure laws that were already enacted or actually impede in someone receiving tenure within schools. And so another one was evaluation systems enacted that contradicted other legislative actions that were already existing in states. And then some teachers brought to court the fact that they felt that their student evaluations occurred and that their ratings occurred with flawed or miscalculated student data. It was challenged at the court level again whether or not poverty factors had been taken into account and English as language learners factors had been taken into account when looking at student growth formulas that impacted teacher ratings and teacher effectiveness. So the final pamphlet we looked at was from the National Education Association, and this was regarding the U.S. Department of Education's Every Student Succeeds Act. So this changed how evaluations were done and put more responsibility for teacher evaluation for designing and enacting evaluations at the state level. But it did include a couple recommendations and requirements. So it did require that teacher evaluations must include something beyond test scores to show effectiveness and suggested that multiple evidences be used. And it also recommended that high quality evaluation tools are used, that evaluators are trained well on evaluating, and that audits on these systems were done on a regular basis just to ensure fairness. And to also look at different unintended consequences of these evaluation systems to be able to correct those. So it also set clear limits around what Every Student Succeeds Act, how it impacted collective bargaining agreements, and other teacher association processes. It also talked about using parents and teachers and community members and students to establish a grant application related to different components of evaluation. It gave lots of templates and suggestions in the NEA's Teacher Evaluation Accountability Toolkit website link, and it talked about actually funding evaluation systems that are put in place by states. It talked about requiring or suggesting that new evaluation systems go through a continuous improvement process so that based on data and input that they are constantly becoming more valid, more reliable, and more fair. So in my school district, the Poudre School District, the 2019 teacher evaluation process looks like this. First of all teachers are evaluated annually, as are all district administrators and building administrators. There must be multiple indicators of effective instruction, and that does include student achievement scores, but not only student achievement scores. There is an assigned evaluator that is assigned prior to the school year beginning, and that person must conduct an informational meeting in the first 30 days of the school year with their assigned teachers. The evidence documents for the evaluation are developed at the district level, and then the teacher does a self-evaluation, which they may share, but don't have to share with their evaluator, and then the evaluator and teacher together create the professional growth plan that's used for the year. The district encourages frequent dialogue and monitoring of the professional growth plan, and review of the plans and the first observation is supposed to occur by the end of the first semester. So non-probationary teachers only are required to have one formal observation a year, but they can decide to have more than that, and probationary teachers need to have at least 2. So formal observations, post-observation conferences, and written report are required prior to the summative report, which is issued at the end of every school year. So our ratings in our district are either ineffective, partially effective, effective, or highly effective. So what happens if a teacher doesn't agree with their evaluation in PSD? Well, first of all, at any point in the evaluation process, teachers can invite a PEA representative or a trusted colleague to any evaluation meeting. And they can disagree with an evaluation, and they can support their disagreement with any kind of documentation or evidence that's attached to their evaluation. So automatically in our district, when a teacher's rated as ineffective or partially effective, a review panel process kicks in and meets to review to make sure all the data collected was fair and was accurate. So that happens regardless of teachers' appeal. But if teachers appeal their evaluation rating, then that review panel comes back into play again and reviews the appeal. So if a teacher's still not satisfied after the review panel looks at the appeal, then they can appeal directly to the superintendent to change their ratings. Ratings in our district do impact teacher tenure and just the status of employment. So I was looking for a Colorado lawsuit that I could report on because I wanted to hear what was happening in our state and locally. And so I found a court case that happened recently in the Denver School District, which is about an hour away from us. A teacher sued the Denver School District after being placed on unpaid leave. And basically there were a couple different findings in this case, but it went all the way to the Colorado Supreme Court. And in the end, the ruling was for the school district and basically stated that tenured teachers do not have a legal right to their salary and benefits when placed on leave. So as I reflect on what it would be like to be a building administrator and how I would follow all legal obligations and mandates in order to ensure a fair evaluation process, I came up with a couple ideas. One, in my district, the evaluation process is spelled out very clearly in the employee agreement. So obviously as an administrator, I would want to follow this process exactly as stated. I wouldn't want to veer from that at all, even though some things are suggestions and not mandates, especially as a new administrator. And I would also want to be very aware of what state mandates there are and how those interact with our district mandates. I think that communicating heavily with evaluators and teachers is necessary. I would rather over-communicate than have somebody surprised. And so I think especially as a new administrator, I would really want to understand where everyone's coming from and what their skill level is and what their understanding of the evaluation process is. I definitely think I would enact extra conferences and observations with teachers who are struggling. I think that it's important to work with teachers who look like they're going to have an ineffective rating to see if there's something you can do about that throughout the school year by really working extra hard with them. And then I would definitely use district resources for support in meeting all the requirements. Our HR director and the directors under that person are really skilled at knowing how to work with evaluation, knowing all the legal requirements, and also knowing when those have been challenged. So I think that would be very valuable information. And then I'd also want to build a relationship with our teachers union because I think that it's really important to understand what complaints have been brought in the past and what the viewpoints are as they look to protect teachers from unfair practices. So finally, a little humor. I realize that a teacher evaluation process is not comfortable for everybody, but I also think that the overall school culture of continuous improvement and giving feedback in an empowering way is absolutely necessary in order to have successful teacher evaluation and have people feel like they've actually gained knowledge, instructional knowledge, and people knowledge as they go through that process. Here is a list of my resources. Thank you very much.